and then we'll open it up for questions afterwards. You can find Jen, of course, on the internet at Jen's Bookshelves. She's on all the social media platforms.
Oh.
It's pretty amazing. She's everywhere. So after this, we'll have a nice mixer with some cake and some bubbly, and let's put our hands together to congratulate and welcome Alma.
So this is supposed to be very casual and laid back and not stuffy at all. So I'm going to ask Alma some questions, but if you have any, or if you have any comments, or if you want to expound upon anything we say, raise your hand at any time. You don't need to wait for the end to ask a question. All right, so we're going to start at the very beginning. So can you tell us your inspiration for writing the Taker trilogy?
So first, before I answer that, I'm going to say thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it, and not leaving me up here by myself. And also thanking One More Page. Again, they are the best friends to the writer community in the DC area from the day they opened their doors. There's so much love for this bookstore, you don't know, and they have been so supportive of me. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys a lot. So the inspirations for the book. You know, I've answered this question a million times, but when I was thinking about it today, I realized, you know, I probably answered it wrong all those other times. Because I always talk about the short story that it came from. The first book actually grew out of this sort of ghost story that I wrote when I was in my 20s. But I guess I can't really say that was the inspiration for the book. You know, I was inspired to, I really wanted to see if I could write a story that had just really huge characters, like the kind of characters that you would just never forget. You think of the stories that you really love, you know, like Dickens or some other stories where there are just characters that are going to stay with you forever, and if you're really lucky, you know, they kind of stand the test of time. And I don't say that to mean I'm honest, I just meant as a writer, what a challenge it is. How do you create characters like that? So that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted these kind of bigger than life characters that would just, you know, and a story that would just sort of sweep you along and, you know, take you on this roller coaster ride. So for better or worse, I think that's what I ended up writing too, because it is pretty up and down.
So when you started writing The Taker, did you intend for it to become a trilogy?
No, that's the other thing. It was a standalone when I first wrote it, and some of you guys know it took me 10 years to write that first book. If you've read it, you probably already know it's kind of got a complex structure to it, which is not something when you're starting as a writer you should really try. I've done it. If I had been smart, and I see at least one of my professors from Hopkins here, if I had been smart and gotten good advice, no, just kidding, I probably would have tried a much more straightforward, simple narrative structure. But doing that, it spans about 200 years in time, it travels back and forth in time, you know, and goes from first-person narrative, there's third-person narrative. It was just so hard to get it to all work. It actually took 10 years to write. So this whole time I was thinking it was going to be standalone. It was going to be this epic story about a woman who was just really ruined by love, basically. And that would be it. So I was very lucky. After 10 years, the book sold. For those of you who don't know, when you sell a book, it generally takes about 18 months for your first book, from contract to the day the paper copy lands on the shelf. It takes about 18 months. 18 months is a long time. So I sit there waiting for the book to come out. I started thinking of, well, what happens next? What happens next to these characters? I just kind of left them there. And pretty soon I had an idea for the 2 more stories in this narrative arc. And so I went back to the publishers and I said, what do you think? And they were like, sight unseen, this doesn't happen anymore. And they were like, well, buy it. And I was like, great. And then I had to write them.